Have you ever just stopped and wondered why a single feeling, like love or maybe fear, can just create a million different stories or dreams inside your head? It's really one of the deepest mysteries of the human mind. How do our emotions, these raw, basic feelings, somehow become the authors of our entire inner world?
Okay, so let's really dive into this. How can the exact same emotion, let's take desire, create a huge, tragic romance for one person, a story of soaring ambition for another, and, I don't know, a recurring dream about a locked door for someone else? Where does all that incredible variety come from? Well, to try and crack this code, we're going to look at a story that has absolutely captivated humanity for thousands of years. It's a tale that's been told and retold across countless religions and cultures, the story of Joseph and Zulaikha. Honestly, it's the perfect case study for this. All right, so let's start with the heart of this thing, a story that has echoed for millennia. At its core, it's about intense love and desire. But what's so fascinating is how that one core emotion gets remixed and reinterpreted. I mean, it changes dramatically depending on who's telling the story. You can really see this taking shape when you compare the different versions. So in the Torah, the story is really framed by family drama, a father's love, his other son's burning envy, and then, ultimately, forgiveness. But then you look at the Quran, and the emotional spotlight just shifts. It zooms right in on the overwhelming desire Zulaikha has for Joseph. That passion becomes a central driving theme. And the story just keeps evolving. For Christians, Joseph becomes a kind of symbol of Christ himself, betrayed but in the end forgiving. The focus there is all about endurance and divine providence. And then you have Persian poets like Jami who take that same passion of Zulaikha's and turn it into something else entirely, this beautiful, mystical allegory for the soul's deep yearning for God.
Okay, now this slide right here really lays it all out. It's the same basic emotional ingredients. You've got love, envy, forgiveness, but each tradition just remixes them, kind of changing the volume on each one. Look at how forgiveness is turned way up in both the Christian Bible and the Quran, while the Torah really dials up the envy and anger. But then the Quran cranks love/desire all the way up, while Persian poetry makes the mystical theme the absolute center of the whole thing. It's like a different recipe every single time. So, what is going on underneath the hood that lets this happen?
Well, to understand that mechanism, people first turn to psychology. And for a long, long time, the best attempts to crack this code came from two of its absolute giants, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. They offered these powerful theories about why these stories have such an incredible hold on us.
Freud would have argued that the story's amazing persistence comes from one single powerful engine, an unfulfilled wish. He'd say Zulaikha's intense longing is basically a stand-in for all of our own repressed desires. The story is a safe way for our minds to play out those forbidden wishes, but in disguise.
Jung, on the other hand, had a different idea. He believed the story taps into something way deeper, what he called a collective unconscious that's shared by all of humanity. So Joseph isn't just a guy, he's the archetype of the divine hero. Zulaikha is the archetypal lover. And these are universal symbols our brains are just sort of pre-wired to recognize and respond to.
And here is the absolute crucial point. Both Freud and Jung give us these really compelling reasons why the story resonates with us so much. They totally explain its power, but they don't explain the mechanics. They don't tell us how a brain physically takes one emotion and generates all these different narrative outputs.
To get to the mechanics of it, we have to go deeper than just psychology. We need to unlock the brain's actual operating system. And to do that, we've got to turn to modern neuroscience and a whole new way of thinking about the physics of the mind.
So let's ask our core question one more time, but now with the focus on the mechanics. How does the brain's hardware, the actual wetware, perform this incredible feat of turning a single feeling into a whole universe of stories?
This is where a groundbreaking new theory called the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM, comes in. And it offers an answer that suggests our emotions work a little bit like gravity, shaping the mental worlds that we all live in.
Okay, let's get into the two core concepts of this model, strain attractors and memory fractals. This is where it gets really, really cool.
So first up, the strain attractor. The easiest way to think about this is to imagine every core emotion you have, love, fear, anger, as a kind of emotional center of gravity inside your brain. It's a stable energy state that doesn't just sit there. It actively pulls related memories, thoughts, and ideas into its orbit, just like a planet's gravity pulls in moons and asteroids.
And second, we have memory fractals.
These are the building blocks that the attractor pulls from. Think of them as the brain's reusable patterns or stencils for stories. It's like you have a stencil for a chase scene, a stencil for a joyful reunion, one for betrayal, and on and on. They're the raw visual and narrative material that's just stored in your memory.
So, the crucial point is this really simple three-step process. First, something happens in your life that triggers an emotional attractor. Let's say it's yearning. Second, that attractor's gravity pulls in and activates a set of linked memory fractals, those stencils, maybe a stencil of missing a train or seeing someone walk away. And then third, the combination of that emotion and those patterns creates a unique story, or a dream, or just a fleeting image in your mind.
And this model just brilliantly illustrates what's going on with the Joseph story. The core emotional attractor is love, but in the Quran, that attractor activates memory fractals related to overwhelming desire and beauty. In the Christian tradition, it activates fractals related to sacrifice and forgiveness. It's the same emotional core, but a different set of stencils, which gives you a totally different narrative output. It just clicks.
The model also explains how our emotions can get so complex. It really comes down to three things. First, how many of those memory patterns or fractals get pulled in? Is it just one simple pattern or a whole bunch of them? Second, how many different parts of your brain get involved? Is the emotion just lighting up your fear center, or is it also pulling from your memory, language, and sensory areas all at once? And finally, how strong is that emotional gravity that's holding it all together? A really complex feeling, like nostalgia for example, would score really high on all three of those.
So, if we zoom out, what does this all really mean? This model isn't just about one story. It points to something incredibly profound about the fundamental language of the mind, which you might even call our emotional grammar. What it suggests is that there's a universal emotional grammar that's basically hardwired into all of our brains. We all share the same limited set of core emotional attractors: love, fear, compassion, envy. These are like the basic nouns and verbs of our inner language. This ancient poetic line just captures the engine of creativity perfectly. When an emotion is triggered, but it can't be expressed through action, when you want something but you can't get it, that leftover emotional energy, that strain, is what fuels the creation of art and stories and dreams. It's the mind's way of finally resolving that tension.
So the grand takeaway here is this. Our brains are masters of creative efficiency. They use a very small set of core emotions as the foundation to generate this limitless library of stories, myths, and dreams that make up all of human culture. A finite emotional toolkit for an infinite creative output. It's pretty amazing. And all of that leaves us with one final personal question. The next time you have a dream, or you're daydreaming, or you just feel a creative urge, think about the underlying attractor. What core emotion is pulling the strings? What stories are your emotions trying to tell you?